Hey guys, doing a video on GHA or green hair algae. In this video, you're going to see how I naturally and effortlessly removed this pest from my aquarium with a natural predator in just 16 days. There was no chemicals involved, no physical intervention. I didn't put my hands in there and remove a bunch. I didn't pour in any chemicals. It was all removed naturally with natural predators. The good thing is that green hair algae is not toxic, which is great, but it doesn't make it any less of an issue that we have to resolve. Besides being ugly, green hair algae is very fast growing. It can also take over your tank and grow up onto corals. It actually grew up onto my Monty a little bit. And obviously growing up on them, it's going to shield them from light, different things like that. Especially like if you had zoas, it would grow over the top of the zoas. And that's going to end up causing coral death. And of course, we don't want that. We want our tanks to be beautiful and stocked with great corals. That's why we're in the hobby. So there are several things that people tend to try when it comes to green hair algae to resolve it. Reduce the photo period, water changes, chemicals, natural predators. Honestly, when it comes to reducing the photo period, I don't like this one. Some people even black out their tank for a period of time, but I don't like this method. It does have a negative effect on the inhabitants of the tank long term if you were to black it out too long or reduce your photo period for too long of a time. And you're not actually resolving anything. You're not putting anything in there to keep the issue away. So unless you've changed something else, by the time you go back to a normal photo period, your issue will return. Water changes. Changing water alone is not going to resolve this. It's already on the rock. It's already on the glass. It's already there. Changing water alone will not resolve this. There are also chemicals out in the marketplace for this issue. If you've watched my other videos, you know I do not like to use chemicals for anything I do. I like to attack everything the natural way. So chemicals is not something I used. I personally don't like that option. And then, of course, we've got natural predators. This is my go-to for almost everything I do. So obviously, natural predators is how I chose to attack this issue. So looking at the natural predators, we have choice of hermit crabs, snails, urchins, sea hares, different fish like tangs, rabbitfish, fox faces, common rabbitfish, and blennies. The natural predator I chose was the Mexican turbo snail. Mexican turbo snails love hair algae. It is one of the types of algae they devour the most. They love it. They devour it quickly. If you were to put these guys directly on that hair algae, as they moved, you would see clean rock underneath them. They eat it like nobody's business. I'll also note I didn't have a ton of coral in the tank when I put these guys in. If I did, I would have made sure and glued it down because they will knock it over. They're like a bull in a china shop. These were one of my caution guys on my cleanup crew video, but for this case, for this instance, they are the perfect guy to put in the tank. If I did have a ton of corals and I needed to glue them down, I would probably go in there with a toothbrush and brush off the bottom of that coral a little bit, the frag plug or disc, maybe the skeleton. Please don't brush the coral flesh or the flange of the coral. You don't want to injure the coral in any way, shape, or form. All right, so let's look at a timeline here so you can see how things progressed. Day 0. Day 0 is the day that I added 10 Mexican turbo snails, and I added them into this 60-gallon breeder. As you can tell, the rock work, the glass, the equipment, the sand bed, there was hair algae on everything. I clearly let it get too far out of hand before I took action. Should have taken action when I first started appearing, and I definitely recommend you take action when you first start seeing it appear. Do not let it get to this extent. So as you can see, it is kind of everywhere. It's up there on the equipment. You can see it growing on the plugs that are coming through. And I'm going to show you this whole tank at each stage gate so you can see the progress on how these guys have cleaned up the tank. I would also recommend, if you do have a UV sterilizer, go ahead and run that at this time. We want to kill any free floating algae in the water. If you don't have one, that's okay. The turbo snails will take care of it. But again, if you do have one, let's go ahead and run it. If you're currently running it and you're still having issues, you can also increase the photo period a little bit. By no means do you need to run it 24 hours a day, but I would go ahead and turn that thing on. All right, so here we are at day 2. So this is 48 hours after I put them in. I do want to note, between day 0 and day 2, it was over a weekend. I put these guys in on a Saturday. This is Monday when I'm recording this. During that 48 hours, those snails kept coming off of the rock and onto the glass. I initially have those 10 snails. I put 7 of them on the rock, 3 of them on the glass. They kept leaving the rock and go into the glass. So I would pull them off the glass and put them back on the rock. And of course, when I put them on the rock, I would put them right on the algae. All right, so we're jumping forward to day 7. I had some travel for business that I had to do, so I wasn't really there to move the snails around and make sure they paid attention to the exact places I needed them to. So they were left to their own accord to move around the tank and do as they pleased. So as you can see, the back glass has had a fair amount of work. The equipment has had a little bit of work, still a lot to do there, but the back glass is pretty clean. The rock work is pretty clean as well. They've done a lot in the few days that I've been gone. But as you can see there, the back glass is almost wiped, 100% clean. There is a spot on the left where it's still dirty, close to that equipment that I have in the tank. And the rock work itself, it only has a little bit left. A lot of it's been picked up, but you can see there on the sand where it is still there. Jumping forward to day 9. All right, so day 9, there's some isolated areas left on the rock, as you can see there. A lot of the rock work has been cleaned. A lot of the glass is looking better. You can still see there off to the side some of the equipment and a little bit of the glass. You can see again here as we go across the back some of the equipment. You can look at those power heads there and see that they've been cleaned up a bit as well. I was able to pick up the snails between day 7 and 9 and move them around a little bit. Not as much as I did the first round, but I did kind of direct them back to the rock work. As you can see, they're not on there now. Day 10, so let's just jump forward one day. After picking them up and moving them around a lot on day 9, you can see, look at that area there. There's a lot of that rock work that has been picked off. Again, as the rock work was being cleaned up, I would pick up those snails, put them back on to the algae spot so they could do some work. In that rock area that we saw at the start was the area that I targeted. Somewhat of that area cleaned up. Like I said, I wanted my rock cleaned up first. So I picked them up and I put them on that area there on the rock as their target area. And I put them there, multiple of them there, and you can see one right there on the rock right now. All right, so let's jump forward to day 13. I did leave again on business, so these guys were left to do everything on their own without being picked up and moved. So as you can see, the rock work is essentially picked clean. I don't have any issues with the rock work left. The glass looks great. And there's just a little bit left on that equipment back there in the corner, as you can see. Everything has been picked clean. Everything looks a ton better. But we're not out of the woods yet. There is still a little bit left on that equipment. There don't really see much on the rock, but just because it's not there now, if it's still sitting on equipment, it can go back there. So we do want to make sure that we are resolving every last bit of it before we feel comfortable with where we're at. All right, so day 16. This is the all clear day. 10 Mexican turbo snails in a 60-gallon breeder. You can look at the rock work there. It has been picked clean. It looks amazing. It looks like the hair algae was never there. You can see the equipment over there in the corner. And again, it looks like nothing ever was there. You can see the back glass. Again, 100% gone. Everything looks great. The equipment, the power heads, all of that has been picked clean. And the tank looks like the green algae was never present. So hopefully you like this video. Hopefully you learned something and it'll help you in your tank. Give me a like, give me a subscribe, check out some more of my content, and I'll get more out soon. Thanks, guys.